Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. I got back from England a couple of days ago. It was great. This is not first times yet. I took my parents. We were talking about somebody who won the lottery and won a ton of money, and their life just fallen apart. Money just destroys your life. I spoke to my brother, my sister. We talked about how rich people, what a dreadful time they have. On the way home, I got upgraded into business class. I'm here to tell you, money is the root of all happiness. I don't mean to proselytize, but I'm a new convert, and I just have to tell somebody. Hallelujah. Oh God. The flight attendant knew my name. She wasn't even reading a list. She memorized it. First times. So I want to talk to you about first times. I met some magical members of the magical animal kingdom. A journey into the wild over the course of 18 years. And it's my deepest hope that as I tell you this story, as you hear about how my experience deepened, you will also feel that my courage deepened. It's a story of journey as a man. That's the first that a man laughed at the first time. Usually it's the women who laugh first. So when I was halfway through my life, when I was 24, when I was 24 it was the end of my life, but when I was 24 I was driving across America. I drove 32 states, and I got up to Wyoming, size of Honshu, population 500,000, a lot of cattle ranches, a lot of cows, and I ran out of money. So I drove onto a cattle ranch and I said, give me a job. And amazingly, they gave me a job. So I was living in a trailer, which is always an aspiration, with a couple of cowboys. My supervisor was Larry from Louisiana. I said, hi Larry, I'm Tim. He said to me, hey Tim, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. You love your mama? I'm from England, we don't usually talk about our feelings. There was a pause and he led, he said, I love my mum. So I said, well, me too. Me too. And he was a good guy to work for. And Larry from Louisiana gave me a few pointers about the ranch. And he said, you know, we get a lot of rattlesnakes around here. And the rule is, you know, with cattle, so we have cow pats. And he said, beware of the cow pat that moves. So okay, I'll do that. So my first day of work, you know, I did a day's work and I went into the kitchen of the trailer. I opened the fridge and there was a rattlesnake inside the fridge. And I slammed the fridge door shut. And my heart was pounding. And, you know, you're panicking because, you know, there it is, a rattlesnake. You've only ever seen it in westerns, you know. And because you're panicking, your rationale is disabled. And you have time to think, how would a rattlesnake get into a fridge? Did it open the door? Why would it hide in a fridge? I mean, these are cold-blooded creatures. It's just a terrible place to hide. And then, I can't understand, why did somebody put it there? Pick it up later as a pet. Why? I don't understand. But there is a rattlesnake in the fridge. I saw it. And I was slightly happy that I moved faster than a rattlesnake. But then Larry from Louisiana came back in and said, hey Tim, and he went towards the fridge. Hey Larry, Woodward, no, it's okay. And he opened the fridge and he pulled out the rattlesnake, which of course was dead. And he held it up and he said, yeah, you know, dinner? He'd run over it, he'd throw it in the fridge, and he was going to cook it for dinner. You want some? Maybe. I thought maybe he'd next thing will be to a practical joke, put it in my bed. I barricaded, I put my chair under the door handle in my bedroom every night, just in case he had a funny idea about throwing a rattlesnake in my bed, but it never happened. And on the day I left the ranch, he said to me, Tim, go to Death Ledge, which was not a way of saying go to hell in Louisiana. It was an actual, Death Ledge is an actual place. I know there's a Death Valley in California, but I think it's in California, but in Wyoming there's also a Death Valley. It's in the Grand Teton Mountain National Park, just south of Yellowstone Park. Grand Tetons, and there's a Death Valley, and there's a Death Ledge, which is halfway up the mountainside. The mountain is not called Death Mountain, I don't know why, but there we are. And he recommended, he said, go to Death Ledge. It's where God lies down and goes to sleep. I didn't ask him if God is on Pithington, why would he need to go to sleep? But thank you, Larry, for the advice. And why not? I'll take your advice. So I drove all the way to Grand Tetons, northwest corner of Wyoming. But I found that in order to go to Death Ledge, you need to get a pass. You need to go to a park ranger, and you need to get a kind of certificate, which he stamps. And if you should by chance run into another park ranger in the mountains, and he asks you, where's your pass? If you don't have one, he'll say to you, turn around. I don't know how he can enforce that, but that's the rule. And so I said, he said, where do you want to go? I said, I want to go to Death Ledge. He said, why do you want to go there? I said, I've heard it's beautiful, despite the scary sounding name, Death Ledge. And he said, well, I don't recommend that you go there. I said, why is that? He said, well, the last people who went there said that they were disturbed by a bear. And we have a lot of grizzly bears in this area. And if the grizzly bear makes the connection between you and food, not that you are food, but that you leave food out, it'll then follow up that instinct and it'll track you, And so I said, I don't recommend that you go there. Where else would you like to go? And I said, well, I'm kind of set on Death Ledge. You're forbidding me from going. And he said, well, I'm not forbidding you. I'm just advising you. So I said, well, thank you for your advice, but I still want to go. Because I'm 24. I'm so happy that you laughed. Not because it's amusing, but because you're like, yeah, I've been there. What could possibly happen to me? And so I got the stamp, and he said, well, you can go, but here are the rules of bear country. He said, I recommend that you go with somebody else, so you can talk as you go, and the bears will hear you and run away from you. And I said, well, I'm by myself. How about if I just talk to myself? And he said, all right. He said, the most important thing is that when you camp, because they have, a bear is like a dog with a very strong sense of smell, you don't attract it with food, so you need to put food and utensils that you use to cook food, and if you have a change of clothes, even the food that you use when you cook the food and eat the food, there's food in the backpack, and put that up a tree 150 to 200 yards from your tent. If a bear should come, it'll go to the tree and not to your tent. I've got it. So, and he said, also try not to wash your hair or brush your teeth or use deodorant. Anything that smells, basically, okay, I've got it. So I went into bear country, I went through Death Valley. Yea, though I walked through the valley of death. And I walked up to Death Ledge, which despite the scary name, is a very lovely place. It was a magnificent view, and I was so glad that I went there. I cooked my food, and everything up the tree, 200 yards from my tent. And then storm clouds gathered, it started to rain, went into my tent, there was this massive storm. I was sitting inside thinking, here I am in my tent on Death Ledge in the middle of a storm. This is the life! I fell asleep. And in my sleep, I had a dream. And in my dream, there were two old ladies. And one said to me, you must forgive my friend. She has a speech impediment, a very severe speech impediment. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. But what do you mean? What kind of speech impediment is it? She said, well, listen to her. And this is true, I'm really not making this up. And then the other friend spoke, and she said this. And I said, well, that is a very severe speech impediment. I don't understand the words she's saying. And then I came around, and I was in that. Sometimes you wake up and you're just sharp, and sometimes you wake up and you're just dopey. And I woke up and I was just dopey. And I woke up and I was dopey, and I could still hear the. Oh, what is that? Someone's on my Thames. What are they doing? It's really bothering me. And so I went to and I opened the front of my tent and stuck my head out, and I was face to face with this huge grizzly bear. And we were about 2 foot between his nose and mine. And suddenly that smell of bear.
You know so well.
Yes. You learn it quickly, trust me. I've been to the zoo. And it's amazing how your consciousness is overridden by your other consciousness to survive, and can make intelligent decisions that your consciousness could never make. Which was, don't look at his eyes. So I looked like I was a bully in the schoolyard. Don't look at his eyes. You'll take it as a challenge. So I looked straight down and started thinking, well, they say sharks punch him on the nose. Should I punch a bear on the nose? And the forest ranger had told me, don't fight a bear. You cannot win. I was all sarky about it. Yeah, really? And he also told me, don't run away from a bear, because a bear is faster than you. Well, I'm in a tent, so I have like 2 yards to run. And he said, you don't climb a tree, because a bear can also climb a tree. But it was right in front of me, so there it is, I froze, and my heart is pounding, and I'm just waiting for the bear to make the next move. And apparently he's waiting for me too. We both waited. It was a school dance. You, is it me? And eventually it made the first move, which was luckily not forward but sideways. And it slowly went out of my vision. And suddenly my tent started shaking. And you know how a kitten can play with a ball of wool? I've seen it in photographs. And it started to play with the guy ropes of my tent. It started to play with my tent. And he would jump and I'd shake my tent, and my tent would shake. And he went all around my tent a few times, playing with my tent, but not trying to enter or... And that was it. 30 minutes that it was from 3 o'clock to 3:30, my watch was still on my wrist, and he played with my tent, and then it was all quiet, and it appeared to be gone. And then, to my own surprise, I fell asleep, because I think half an hour of the bear is like 100 hours, normal hours, and I just fell asleep, and I woke up, and all around my tent were these paw prints. I went down the hill, paw print, and I walked out of Death Valley, alive. 18 years later, imagine how my courage has grown in 18 years. I was living in a small Japanese house near Shimogamo, and I went downstairs to get some water at 5 o'clock in the morning. I heard a funny noise. I turned around into my living room, and there was a weasel The weasel looked at me, and I looked at the weasel, and it disappeared. Hid behind Fusma. Came back to check. I was real. It disappeared. I thought, right, I'm going to get you. I slammed the door shut, and then the weasel just went mad. And it started, the noise that came from my living room. You couldn't imagine that something that size was in there. It was like a lion or a bear or a deer. Something huge was in there and just careening around the room. The noise, I couldn't believe it. And then suddenly, the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life hit me. The only smell I'd ever smelled that was as bad as that, I'm happy to say, was when driving across America, I'd driven past a roadkill skunk. And I was like, oh yeah, they are a member of the same family. And the weasel has this capacity to release this sort of dreadful, not like a skunk several times, but one time as a final defense. And I finally understood the children's, in England, the nursery rhyme, Pop Goes the Weasel. So for the first time ever, it made sense to me. It was the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life, and there's this chaos next door. My fiancée came downstairs, and by this time I was holding a stick in my hand. She came downstairs, smelt the smell, and looked at me.
Tim, what have you done?
I don't know if she was starting to reconsider the engagement. And I said, it's the weasel, it's Itachi. Itachi? In there? Yes. I said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to go in there. She said, don't. They're very ferocious. They are vicious. I said, well, what do you propose that I do? She said, call Marcus. Marcus is, if you don't know him, is my friend. He's 6'4", he really works out. I said, it's that big, I think I can handle it. She said, I still think you should call Marcus. It's 5 a.m. What are we supposed to do? Call Marcus and ask him to kill it while we stand on the sidelines and applaud? She said, good idea. I was being sarcastic. It was at that point I noticed, and this is true, suddenly the noise, the weasel had just been running around and just ripping things in the next room. Suddenly the room next door was silent. It was as if the weasel had heard and understood. Marcus? Well, he's 6'4" and he works out. Shit. I don't think I can take him. This is how irrational you get when you encounter the wild. I thought, I can take this kind of disrespect from my fiancée, but not from the weasel. So I grabbed my stick, and I'm going in. It will bite you! I opened the door and I went in. I couldn't find it anywhere. And I noticed the oshier was slightly open. Oh my God, did it open it by itself? So I opened the oshier basically carefully. Nowhere, nothing. I couldn't find the weasel anywhere. I couldn't find a hole anywhere. I had absolutely no idea how it got in, how it got out, but it did somehow. But I knew it was there. So I bought one of those rat traps, mouse traps, they're sticky, they go to the food, they get stuck. I bought it and I put some bacon, I put it at the back door. And I waited with my stick. I heard the noise, I ran, no bacon, no weasel. Mouse gets stuck, weasel, they can escape. So I thought, well, I bought 5 rat traps, and I made a big area of sticky rat traps, and I put a load of bacon in the middle. I waited. I heard a noise. I ran. No bacon, no weasel. My fiance said to me, "Can you please stop feeding the weasel?" So I did. I do what she said. And we didn't hear from the weasel again. It seemed to disappear. It was springtime, you know, and it had better places to go. And I hadn't seen a weasel or heard from one for 6 years until I moved relatively recently, and there's a fence behind my house, and a lot of cats go along the back fence. And I had my glasses off, and I noticed that there was a cat going along. I thought, that's a funny shaped cat. I put on my glasses, and it was a weasel. I banged on the window, stopped it, and looked at me. And I gave it a stare, as if to say, "I'm ready for you." And it kept going. And then I thought, it's quite big actually. I heard they're ferocious. Thank you.